Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Climate, where we believe we can create a climate in our lives for our lives to thrive. My name is Josh Laughter, and I'm excited about today because we are launching our first YouTube version of this podcast. And so if you're joining us, welcome. I want to say if this is your first time on YouTube, we do have 3 episodes before this that you can check out on anywhere you consume your podcasts, and that'll be the first 3 episodes. And this actually will be the last episode in a series that we've been discussing how to have deep and meaningful relationships. In the first one, we talked about what is a deep and meaningful relationship, and then talked a little bit about boundaries and how we can set those and really live a life consistent with our values and help people to honor those in our lives as well. And then we talked about starting strong, how to get from that acquaintanceship or somebody who you just met into a deeper friendship and having a good conversation with them. And so today I want to have a conversation with you guys about how to have a deep relationship with yourself. And so I want to talk about this because I think this is one of the keys to any deep and meaningful relationship is first being okay with you, because when you're okay with you, you enter a new relationship without any insecurities and less baggage, because today we're going to talk about really playing to your strengths and also acknowledging your weaknesses and being okay with those, because being okay with your weaknesses allows you to grow, and capitalizing on your strengths allows you to thrive. And so excited about today, so let's dive in. The first point that I want to say is play to your strengths and be you, right? So play to your strengths and be you. Everyone has their own strengths. Everybody has their own things that they're good at. And what I see most often when people are struggling in a relationship is that they are struggling more with comparison, and that they aren't the other person, right? So if somebody's struggling with insecurities, or if they're struggling with personal frustrations, maybe even depression and some levels of anxiety as well, there's this comparison where you look at your life through the lens of what everybody else's life looks like. And so when we do that, what happens is it actually kills the contentment with who we actually are. And we need to recognize that our strengths are going to be different than someone else's strengths, and who we were created to be is going to be different than who somebody else was created to be. And so when we can be okay with that and really capitalize on those strengths, what we see is that we are more okay with ourselves, and we can just be us. We could stop trying to be somebody else and stop really trying to work into this other relationship. And I understand it's difficult. I mean, we live in a culture that is just built upon the comparisons we make with other people. I mean, every media that you watch, whether it's a commercial or a YouTube channel or maybe even this podcast, what our brain does is we instantly start comparing our lives through the lens of the other person. Well, why don't I have a YouTube channel? Why isn't my skin that nice? Why aren't I that pretty? Why don't I live in that house or in that area? Why don't I make that level of income? Why don't I? And the thing is that we need to recognize we're playing our own game. We're playing our own game, and we've got to stop trying to compare the distance we've gone in our game to how far somebody is going in a completely different game. This is like sitting there in Monopoly and you just ended up in jail while somebody's playing Scrabble and they just got a triple word score. It's just not the same. It's not the same game, because in Monopoly you have a lot more that you could be gaining, where in Scrabble maybe you got a triple word score, but it doesn't mean that you're gonna win. Maybe you got a triple word score on X. I don't know. But it's important for us to acknowledge that if we play our own game and play to our strengths, our comparisons start to die off. And see, the thing about capitalizing on our strengths is we start to be more okay with who we are, and actually proud of ourselves to some degree, and happy with ourselves to some degree, that just says like, I'm good at this. I can Be strong. I can lead well. I can go through go through this thing. Like my wife, she had a hard time when we were younger because her gifts are in administration and hospitality, and she was looking for a purpose in her life. And one of the things that she struggled with was finding a place where she could contribute with value, but also live the life that she wanted to live in her strengths, right? But what she would always do is compare herself to somebody who is more extroverted than her, or compare herself to somebody who is in a different career field than her, and instead just being comfortable with her strengths. And now she's an administrative assistant at the church that I work for, and we love our lives. We get the opportunity to grow and be passionate together and work together, and it's because she's learned to capitalize on her strengths, to play to her strengths. The next one is be careful what you commit to. And this is something that I'm learning recently. My mentor used to have me post a sign on my desk that said, under promise and over deliver, because I had a tendency to over promise and under deliver, to always make commitments that I was incapable of following through on. And what I think that this does is it actually creates a rift in our self-conscious when I say, hey, I'll be there Thursday, and then you realize that you've double booked. Creates this rift in the perception of ourselves and who we actually are versus who we want to be. And it makes it really hard to love ourselves or to have a good relationship with ourselves, because we start to feel fake when we go places. And we start to be afraid that if somebody saw the real me, that they would abandon me, or they'd leave me, or if they only knew the real me, that they wouldn't trust me, they wouldn't like me, they wouldn't care for me. And the thing that I see is that when we make 10 commitments and we're incapable of following through, then we start to have this rift, and we're uncomfortable within our own skin. We're uncomfortable in who we are. And so one of the biggest encouragements I can make to this, because it's something I'm currently working through and learning from, is letting my yes be yes and my no be no. If I say I'm going to do something, show up and do it to the best of my ability, but also be okay with saying no. It doesn't just mean let your yes be yes and never say no to anything. It means let your no be no. When you say, hey, I can't come through this time. Hey, I can't do this. I can't accomplish that task. Or, hey, I can't be there for this party or this engagement because I have prior commitments. When we let our yes be yes and our no be no, we start to let the version of ourselves that we want to be become more like the version of ourselves that we actually are. And we can have a deeper relationship with who we are, because we're comfortable in our own skin again. And man, this is something I've struggled with for years, is trying my hardest to not be a people pleaser, because by nature I struggle with wanting to please other people and do everything and try to be the person that can contribute the most and be in the most people's lives. And I've realized that allowing myself to just say no more often has made me stronger and more comfortable with who I am, and more confident in turn, because I know if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through. And if I tell you I'm not, then likely I won't be following through on it. And so I'm really striving in my life right now to just under promise and over deliver. Under promise and over deliver. Nobody gets mad if you say, hey, I'm going to bring, $10 over for dinner, and you show up with 15, because you under promised and you over delivered. But if you say I'm bringing 15 and you show up with 10, everybody's frustrated. And so it's important to remember under promise and over deliver. Next one is guard your heart. What we allow in our lives grows us or diminishes us. To have a healthy relationships with ourselves, we have to ask, would Josh 10 years from now be okay with this decision? Would Josh 10 years from now be okay with going to this place or hanging out with these people or watching this show or doing this thing? Like, will Josh 10 years from now be happy that I've made this choice? Because what we allow into our lives either grows us or diminishes us. And if we spend all of our time longing to grow and longing to be better, but all we allow into our lives is diminishing things, it creates, again, this rift in our personality that says, I'm not comfortable with me anymore. And when you're not comfortable with you, again, this whole series is about having deep and meaningful relationships. And so when you're not comfortable with you, what it actually does is it makes it where you can't be comfortable with other people. You've got to be okay with you so that you can be okay with others. I've heard it said this, and I think this is an IT term, is garbage in, garbage out. what you're putting into your life, allowing into your life, allowing to come in, if it's diminishing things, then diminishment is what's going to come out of your life. Less things, lesser accomplishments, lesser goals, lesser future, because we allow the diminishing things into our mind, into our heart, even just the relationships that we're in or the life that we live. Guarding our heart is such a big deal when it comes to these things, because what we want to do is be the best version of ourselves we can be. The recognition is that relationships are a key to a healthy life. Like, relationships are huge. We literally interact with other human beings every single day. And the more okay I am with myself, what I've learned in my short time is the more okay I am with me, the more I am okay with you. But when I'm not okay with me, I always want to find a way to diminish you, right? It's called tall poppy syndrome. What it is as other people grow, you either can grow yourself or cut the other person down. And what we tend to do in today's society is, instead of pushing ourselves to grow in that comparison that we talked about in the beginning, we just start not being okay with ourselves, not being okay with where we're at, not being okay with our strengths, and we just start cutting other people down. And it's really difficult to have a deep and meaningful relationship when you can't even have one with yourself or be okay with yourself. And the last thing I want to talk about and really dig into here is be honest with yourself. See, we all have weaknesses. We all have things that we're struggling with and that we're trying to work through. But when I don't allow myself to see my faults, when I don't allow myself to see my failures, when I don't allow myself to see my weaknesses, what actually happens is I create, again, this lie of who I am and who I'm trying to be. And it makes me uncomfortable. But when I can acknowledge my weaknesses and be authentic with myself, we talked about this in week 1, being authentic with yourself, being authentic with other people is the quickest way to a deep and meaningful relationship. So when I'm authentic with me and I am, again, okay with my weaknesses, I'm okay with my failures, I'm okay with my faults, I'm okay with the odd pet peeve things that really just get under other people's skin, I'm okay with those. And of course I want to grow in them. I'm not just going to stay where I'm at, but I'm okay. It doesn't mean that I'm a bad person because of these things. It just means I'm a work in progress, which is how we should view ourselves and view everybody else. See, we acknowledge our weaknesses and we capitalize on our strengths. We acknowledge our weaknesses and we capitalize on our strengths. We want to, with authenticity, look at our lives through a lens of how can we make a difference for other people? How can we benefit other people? Because, again, the mission of what this channel is going to try to be is to create a climate where our lives can thrive. And I think that if we can start to be more comfortable with ourselves, it makes it where we're less offendable. It makes it where we're more approachable. It makes it where our lives are thriving in the community around us. Because I have heard it said that your net worth is your network. Your net worth is your network. And so when you are looking at how you can be better, your social network is huge to how you can actually grow in this life. How do people view you? How do people see you? Are people going to call you when an opportunity arises because they like you or because you have a deep relationship with them, or that they view you as a friend and somebody that is meant to have an authentic community? Or are you going to be somebody who's frustratable and offendable and difficult to have any level of actual deep relationship with? And I think, again, the purpose of today's episode is for us to be okay with ourselves. And then the last thing is set yourself up for success. Every single one of us need things. We need rest. We need reflection. We need to be able to restore our lives with refreshment, right? And so rest, reflection, restore, refreshment. Like that's what it's about, is taking time to be the best you can be. And how to have a deep and meaningful relationship with yourself is to not deprive yourself of some of these things. Some of us are working 60 to 80-hour weeks and we're never resting with our family or spending time with loved ones. We're just in go mode. And it's hard to have a deep relationship with ourselves when we know that we need to slow down and we don't treat ourselves well. Maybe you're in a season where you just need to be restored. You need other people to pour into you. You need to open up to somebody and let that authenticness flow out so other people can build you back up. And we betray ourselves by not being authentic and not allowing people in for that restoration to happen. See, we need to take time to grow. We need to take time for our hobbies, to be refreshed. We want to take time for all of the things that we are going through in our lives. This is a good question. How would you take care of your kid? How would you take care of your kid? You would, if they were going all the time, I'll tell you what, I have a 2-year-old, and today she was in go mode. She was getting in a bad attitude, and it was like, hey, time for a nap. You need to take some time to rest, right? You need to take some time to rest. And then this last week was long. And so we sat down and we just took some time for a refreshment. We colored, we played, we threw the ball back and forth. We even worked out and we pushed ourselves a little bit. And we had some time together in the strain and the struggle. And so what I'm saying here is that you have to set yourself up for success by taking care of yourself the way you would take care of somebody else. But a lot of times in today's culture, especially if you're a people pleaser like me, we neglect ourselves so that we can take care of other people. We neglect ourselves so we can take care of other people. And to set yourself up for success, you really need to take time to recognize, what do I need right now? What do I need right now to be the best version of me? For me to show myself that I care. Maybe I haven't treated myself in a little while for the accomplishments that I've had, and I need to just go celebrate. Maybe I'm working like crazy and I need to just rest for a little while. Maybe I need to open up to somebody and be restored by healthy relationships, by people really caring for each other and standing next to each other. Maybe I just need some time to reflect on life. And I just need to think and process, where have I been this last year of 2019? And where am I going in 2020? What have I accomplished and been successful at? And where do I hope to end up? And this season where you can sit and you can just rest and restore and refresh and reflect on all the things in your life, what it does is it tells me and my subconscious mind that I'm going to take care of Josh, that I'm going to be there for him. And even when I'm weak, and even when I have faults, and even when I struggle, I'm still going to do all I can to care for myself. And to do that tells me that it's okay for me to care for other people. It's okay for me to pour out for other people in healthy ways. Because again, when I'm comfortable with me, when I'm okay with me, I'm less offendable, and it's easier for me to get along with other people and want great things for other people and wish the best for other people. And so I hope that today you've thought a little bit about maybe what your strengths are and how you can stop comparing and just be okay with you. Maybe you're looking at being more careful with your commitments and letting your yes be yes and your no be no. Maybe it's time to guard your heart a little bit and be more conscious about what you let in so that you are pushing yourself to the person you want to be in the next 10 years. And you just ask yourself that question. Would Josh in 10 years be happy with this decision? And then at the end of the day, maybe it's just time to be honest with yourself and set yourself up with success by acknowledging your weaknesses, not acknowledging your struggles, and then looking for rest, looking for refreshment, looking to be restored, and then to reflect. I am wishing the best on you guys in 2020. Do me a favor, if you got something out of this today, give this a share it on YouTube, or if you're listening on our podcast, just let somebody know who maybe has a hard time loving themselves, who has a hard time being okay with themselves. Maybe this is a resource that would benefit them to look at some of these lessons and reflect and put them in practice into our lives. And so again, thank you for joining me on Climate, where we believe that we can create a climate in our lives for our lives to thrive. I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you soon.